I would like to bring to order the City of Grand Rapids Mobile GR Commission meeting on September 4th at noon. First item is roll call.
Lunger. Whistling. Here. Clark.
Here.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Wynn.
Here.
Mathis. Sessa.
Here.
Rye.
Here.
Patton.
Here.
Pawalka.
Here.
Weiler.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Next is approval of the agenda items. If there's any suggestions or changes, now is your opportunity. Otherwise, does this require approval?
Sure. I just asked that we move up the parking incentive working group update to just the first item on the updates.
And I'd like a little advice from you here, Chair. I circulated a memo that I'd like to discuss. I don't know if we want to make it a formal agenda item. I'm comfortable talking about it during Commissioner comments.
You are comfortable
Yeah.
doing it then?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
The other appropriate spot to put that would be under your positions and communications, and then obviously you can speak to it
Sure.
at any point.
Okay. Any other changes or suggestions? I'll take a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Who's the second?
Nobody moved. I'll move.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next is approval of the minutes from August 7th. They were in our packets. Does anyone have any corrections or comments? Excuse me. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, petitions and communications.
Great. If I could, I think I can do this in about 3 minutes. This is a suggestion and a hope that essentially for staff follow-up, but at our director's suggestion, a couple of us got a little working group together and asked the question if we wanted to do something immediately for cycling to advance cycling infrastructure that would be achievable, what would it look like? And so this little memo proposes essentially that we take Fulton from the city limits to and study, right? Like it may be that our director comes back and says, no, because X, Y, or Z, or we can do it here and we can't do it here. But look at whether we could do Fulton from one side of town to the other, Lake Drive from East GR until it hits Fulton, and Eastern from Burton until it hits Lake Drive. So that's not quite a Y. I don't know what you describe it as, but a little bit of quick, dirty research. We all know this, that what got done in East GR I call armadillos. So they started using armadillos. Those turn out to cost about $1,500 a mile. They're not that expensive, and at least that's our thumbnail guess. So again, all subject to study and analysis. But the nice thing about them is they're reversible. You know, if it's a terrible idea and it causes cancer, you can take them out. There are different ways to adhere them. Some is just glue them down because that really makes it easier to take them out for winter plowing. The other is through bolts. But the other idea, which is really nifty, and I don't want, I got to be careful not to be too excited about this, but I think this may be an amazing, cool idea. Rumble strips. We all know them from the highways. You can plow over them with no trouble. They turn out to be cheap. You can retro do them on existing roads. The state, when we discovered rumble strips, did them on all kinds of 55-mile-an-hour roads, did them in the middle of the lane, in between oncoming traffic too, so you can do them like 8 inches wide. So if we figured out how to rumble strip these roads, it might be a really a great leap forward without a lot of downsides. So the group suggested essentially study armadillos someplace, study rumble strips somewhere else, and then see what citizen feedback is, whatever. So the idea is this is a beta test, and if it makes sense, then we've got some experience with it. So I would love to be the first state in the country to try rumble strips and see if they do in fact cause cancer or the zombie apocalypse, or if they work and they signal to cars that they shouldn't be there. So that's this. You can all digest it. So think of it as a request to our director to start thinking about this. And that's the state of thinking right now. And y'all know how to read, so I'm done now.
Okay, sounds great. So officially received and filed.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, great. We do have an action item next. It's our 2026 meeting calendar. Excuse me.
Hi, everyone. So I hope you are enjoying the setup. I wanted to give you all a nice space. We heard a lot about what you talked about last time about having more of a discussion, more time and opportunities for discussion. And so one of the things that helps us be able to have a space like this is planning way far ahead, because city commission chambers are hot commodity. And so Mary has a proposal in front of you in your packet on some dates in 2026. We're already planning for that. So Mary's going to walk you through that and kind of why we chose those dates, and also trying to get us a nice area together. So, Mary.
Yes, thanks, Jess. So I'm Mary, if I haven't met any of you yet, the administrative assistant to the mobile GR director. And I'm going to be running through our proposed 2026 meeting calendar dates. So our recommendation is that we meet on the second Wednesday of each month from 12 to 2 p.m. And we chose the second Wednesday of the month because, one, that's when the Chamber Commission is open, and then also that helps avoid any conflicts with major holidays. So below you can see the list of the dates, and then pending commission approval, the calendar will be finalized at our December 2025 meeting and published.
Any questions?
I do have a question. So, I mean, is the reason for switching from first Thursday to second Wednesday just the room availability?
Yes, primarily the room availability, and it also works best internally for our staff as well.
I have to say I'm very disappointed I don't get to sit in the mayor's chair anymore, but so be it.
You can sit up there if you want.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the 2026 meeting calendar.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Discussion items. I just want to take 5 minutes. I think we're all, what's the word? Last meeting was not as, I think, swift and efficient as I hoped our meetings could be. So one of the things I'd like to discuss just a little bit is to lay out, when we have presentations, I'd like to request that we first, it would be nice if we read the packet, provided our questions, and brought them to this meeting, if possible. But at the minimum, listen to the full presentation, write your questions down, and then we'll allow for more time for questions and answers at the end of a presentation. Because I feel like the presenter gets frustrated, or not frustrated, but interrupted too many times, and that's difficult for a presentation. Someone who's done presentations, I like to get through them all and then have questions. So that's one. The other thing, we have to be careful. We don't specifically direct staff. Our role is to make recommendations to the city commission, ergo the city manager, who then directs Jessica and her staff what to do. We're fortunate to have the mayor on this commission, so that recommendations that we make will have some teeth and some influence for the city commission, which has not been so in the past. So I'm very happy you're on this commission. That's it. That's my 2 cents.
If I can add a confession to that. So I am certainly been an offender on that, and I will really try to change my behavior. As a partial explanation, I was an appellate attorney, and when you're an appellate attorney, you're standing in front of a bunch of judges, and they can interrupt you whenever the hell they want, and they do, and then you just have to respond. And it's nice for the judges, because if they have a question, they don't forget about it. So I'm just used to that format, and that's not the right format for these kinds of things, so I will work on changing my behavior.
Well, we're all guilty, so.
But I also, I constantly, every morning I worry that I'm becoming senile, and I have to, if I have an idea, I really want to get it out so I don't forget it. Earlier today, Rick, I had a conversation with you, so I said I had 3 things to tell you on a topic, and I only remember 2 of them by the time I got around to it. So, anyway, but I will.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, but I will take the discipline
Appreciate it.
personally.
All right, next is the mobile GR work plan. Jessica?
Hi. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you. So I just wanted to run through what we've done so far today, including you all, and the work that you've put in, the presentations that you've suffered through, and I gotta tell you, my staff is so patient. They never get frustrated, honestly. I mean, maybe, but not with you all. They love coming to speak with you. They are very passionate about what they do, and they're excited about your questions and things. And so I appreciate just a little bit of structure around how we take those questions so that we can best answer them and get you the information that you need so that you all can make great recommendations. So I want to run through, I don't know what's going on with my slide. Maybe just keep clicking. So I want to run through what we've done today and then some draft plans I've got for you all in the near future. There's been lots of conversations about, what are we going to do about the bike plan? What are we going to do about different things? And I just want to share with you all and remind you of some of the things that were put in the fiscal year 26 budget for Mobile GR and some of the planning and policy work that I'm getting ready to bring to you all. So in January, obviously we welcomed our new commissioners. Thank you all for being here, and then we've had some more added since then. We had an action on your meeting schedule, which we're getting ahead of that so that we can have a fabulous space like this for you all. Thank you for approving that today. We looked at the code for the Mobile GR Commission, just to remind you all of the scope of your work here. And then also, we have the Mobile GR Commissioner Handbook that we had not existed before, and so we brought that to this commission just to see if that was helpful, and it's something that we use every time we have a new commissioner come on board. And then we also discussed the 2025 meeting topics, and you all weighed in on those, and I looked at I think I looked probably 8 months in advance. Some of that shifted as time went on with feedback and all from you all. February, you all chatted through the residential parking permit policy, which was a 3-year project in the making. We also had a discussion around Lime Access from the fall before, where we put some money towards a transportation equity program where we subsidized the full cost of Lime Access rides and the success of that program. And then we also had a discussion around transportation safety program, and then you can go on. By March, we were talking about parking operations to give you all a good 101 on that, and we also discussed the parking market competitiveness framework, which is we're in the 2nd year of that 5-year framework to look through how we are charging for, what parking rates are, how to look at them, and there was a big rate adjustment in the year that I came here, 2024. So I came in the end of June, and it came in, and it was official in the fiscal year 25 budget, and so it hit July 1st, and that was the first thing I had to talk to the media about. And then, it was super fun. And then we also had we had 60 students from the Public Museum School Transportation Research Project, where they came and talked to us about they want play streets, they want to see pedestrianized streets, and it was really fun to hear from these students because they did their own speed studies, they did their own traffic studies with their teachers, and they were excited what was exciting for us to hear, and I think all of you really enjoyed hearing from them, is that they are echoing what we are hearing in our mobility surveys. They're echoing what we heard in the community master plan about what the community wants in a mobility system. And so it was really, really fun to hear that from 9th through 12th graders as well. In April, a parking incentive approval came before you, and you all approved that. And then we also had an action. It is part of the scope of the work of this body to approve the program guidelines for the residential parking program, permit program, and you all took a look at that. You had discussed it maybe 2 months before, and then you took action on it there, and now we have a working program in place that is very resident activated. And then we had another discussion around the micromobility Lime Access pilot program and just kind of a full report. We did a little update, and then this was the full report with the cool numbers that showed us everything. We had worked with McGill University on that research project. In May, we had another parking incentive request that came forward, and that is about the time that this body said, I think that we should talk about this. This is a 1993 City Commission policy, and we would like to take a look at this. And so at that time, you all established a working group where you talked about it, and then you established it in June, and that working group has had its first meeting. It took us a while to get on everybody's calendar, but we did it, and we have a report on that a little bit later. We also had the Rapid come and present the transit master plan. We had a good discussion around that. And then we took a year in review of Dash 3.0. And the reason it was May 2025 is because even though January 2024 was when the Dash new route went out, we didn't have 7-day-a-week service until May 2024. And so that was your first full year of that newly established route. And Max Dilleben, the program manager, came over and talked with us about what that looked like. In June, we had those board rule changes that we talked about in January or February, I believe. We were able to get them back to you by June, and you all took action on that. So we have updated board rules. And then also we established, that is when you took action to establish the Parking Incentive Program Working Group. We had a discussion around parking enforcement where Craig, our parking lead, came over and talked with you all about how many tickets are issued and, historically, and what that looks like, and how many are odd even. And we had a good discussion around what that operation looks like. We also started discussions about the MODI project review. You can think of that as the parking finder application that we've been working on. And you should have regular updates in your project updates in your packet every month on that. And we also came to you for the first time, I believe, about the parking investment strategy, which is a big project that you all may have been hearing about lately, and I regularly report on because there's been a lot of conversation. We had to go through a 4-step process to get the use of drones for data collection approved through the City Commission. And that brings us up to July, where we actually talked about the Dash Onboard Rider Survey project. I hope you all got your QR codes and you've already taken your survey as Dash riders. And then also we talked through the overview of not only mobile GR, I talked a little bit about the overview of what we've been doing, and then also Cindy Irving from the engineering department came and spoke about the projects, the Vital Streets projects, and that is the lion's share of transportation funding, and it lives in engineering, and engineering manages the capital improvement program for transportation, and that's what we talked through at that meeting. We did an update on all of the projects we're working on. And then also in August, our last meeting, you all remember, we had a huge presentation about signals. Thank you so much for your patience through that. That is a lot of information I appreciate. And there's been some questions afterwards that I'm going to shore up with a couple of you that had on that program. And then also what has been coming up more and more is the Dash, and having a conversation around what is the purpose of the Dash, what is the goal of the Dash, and how do we realize those goals, and what are those goals? And we had a discussion there, and then we had some homework to go back and do. So today, thank you for adopting your calendar for 2026. We will get scheduled, and we spoke about a couple of things, and we have some updates coming your way. Moving forward, what you can look forward to is in the fiscal year 26 budget. Do we have something else? Oh, good. I'm glad I put this in there. In the fiscal year 26 budget, one thing that was approved is some funding towards a mobility blueprint. So currently, the City of Grand Rapids does not have an overarching, what I would call an old school term as a long-range transportation plan, where you look into the future, you think aspirationally about what you want your transportation system and network to look like, and you plan for that. My favorite way to do a plan like that is to make it fiscally constrained. In other words, you plan what infrastructure you want to put on the ground, and you put a dollar amount to it, and you plan that out so that as you're implementing that plan, you know what that cost is, and you've in that particular future year. So there's a little mathing in there, and it helps give an opportunity for the public and advisory bodies like you all to put priorities in place. We have heard a lot in the community master plan about what priorities are important to this community, and the mobility priorities are very clear. We've also heard for many years, or several years, we've done the mobility survey twice, and we hear it's a consistent message what the community wants. And it's a lot of the things that you all speak about in these meetings that are important to you as well. And so that is what is really coming up in the next year, and I am preparing for that right now. I'm getting internal alignment on scope. These are things that we will need some help from a consultant because there's some specialized skill sets we need in there, and that is truly a policy document. So in October, I've got some things in here. I've been asked by a member of your commission to take a look back at our safety program, and I popped that on in October, working out, being ready for that. Dash improvement update, next steps. There was a lot of conversation last meeting about what we should be, what should the Dash be looking like, and we've been doing some homework, and we want to bring you back an update. In November, I am suggesting, and Max is going to walk you through a conversation a little bit. I am suggesting that maybe we sit down and have a retreat/workshop for a few hours and really talk more about your priorities and your thoughts and what you're hearing from the community and the kind of recommendations that you're thinking about. Things like this, the pop-up network that LeGrand brought in. Like, is this something that is important to this team, and how to do that? Because right now, the next couple of months, I'm working on the work plan, not for this year. We're in the middle of that budget work plan. I'm working for the work plan for fiscal year 26, or excuse me, fiscal year 27. So in November, what I would love to do, and this is a draft, is maybe overview some of these things. But I'd like to hear from you all today about what that workshop might look like. Is that valuable? What kind of things do you need to know or that you're not clear about that you would need to have to make feel like you're making a good recommendation? And then December is some housekeeping things. And also we're going to lose a few of our longtime commissioners. Clark, Mathis, Wynn, who else am I losing?
Longer.
Where is he? Okay, so, we're losing a few folks and we really appreciate your time here. I want to give some time to say farewell to them. And then by the end of the year, we should have some things wrapping up, like the parking investment strategy. You can go to the next slide, parking investment strategy, and that parking incentive working group, so that you all will have some information from those efforts, so that you can also prepare to make a recommendation or to put together your thoughts after you've heard information from those outcomes, which are policy and planning documents. 2026, I'm trying to think ahead for you all, knowing that I've got 2 assistant directors should be back on board by the end of the year. If you want to keep going, Devin, thank you. I've just got some things in here. This is for your consideration. It's what's going to help us move forward with the work plan that we already have in place for fiscal year 26, but I'm willing to hear your perspective and take some feedback on those thoughts. And I think if you keep going, Devin, I think that's the end. Yep. I'm trying to plan out through the year to make sure that you all know what's coming. So that's what I have in place. Okay, if you go to the next slide. So these are items that are in place. This looks really weird. It looked better on my screen. These are some items that are already in progress, and I just want to have them written down and in front of you all so you know what's going on at the mobile GR department, and some things that are near future. These are things that do not have an RFP yet. The scope is being written. I am waiting on assistant directors to fill some roles to help me out, and that is that mobility blueprint, which is a huge priority. It's in the budget, it's in the work plan. I got to get that off the ground, it has been told. And then the signals asset management plan, the downtown traffic circulation strategy, that's something that we applied for funding through GVMC, and we have that coming to us after the federal fiscal year, which is October 1st and coming up on us pretty quickly. I'd really like to have my traffic engineer assistant director back in place before we start that project. And then implementing the community master plan, intersection safety improvement action plan. There's just some things, and you'll just kind of see. I don't know why this is running off. I'll get you all a better formatted copy of this. There have been some key priorities identified from your director's perspective, and that is I've got to onboard these assistant directors. We've been without an assistant director over engineering for almost a year. And then the other assistant director, we've been without since June. And I'm in active recruitments and any day now. But it takes some time to selection on that. And then we're in budget prep. We start now. And we make our proposal in January. And so that you can have plenty of time to go in front of the city commission. And then we're also doing a little update on the city's strategic plan, and there's a whole mobility focus area, and that's something that we've been very engaged with to have that prepared in time for the city commission's retreat workshop, which is happening in November. So making sure that we've got all of our wheels turning in prep for all of these things coming up with city commission. Ongoing public engagement. And then of course that DASH program concerns that keep coming up, those really are top of mind for me. That was a lot of talking. I've had that. So that's what I've got written down for you all. It is for your consideration and thought and context. Max has some open-ended questions to help start a discussion, and we've got time set aside for this today, just to talk through anything that's on your mind. And I understand you've just seen this, unless you did read your packet, which I'm sure you all did. But if this is the first time you've been able to walk through this, hopefully my quick overview helps you kind of just give you context on where we're at in the year, where we're at in the work plan, and where we're at in prepping for fiscal year 27. Okay, Max.
So yeah, we're going to have a very open-ended discussion, so we can talk about all those sort of things. But first, I just want to say my name is Max Gillis. I was administering this body for a long period of time, so I know most of you, but there are some new faces here, so I just want to reintroduce myself. My new role is to lead our strategic initiatives team at the department. So we handle things from communications engagement, strategic planning, special projects, and organizational, internal structure. So doing a lot of really cool things, but I'm very excited here today to kind of have that facilitated discussion that Jessica mentioned about our fiscal year 27 planning. So identifying some priorities and principles and just kind of values from this group I think will be really helpful. So I think we're going to start initially by reflecting on what inspires you and drives you for your passion for this sort of work, and then we're going to move into some more specific principles and prioritization around those values and those ideas. Our goal today is not to make final decisions, but just for us as staff to be able to listen and then start identifying some themes that we can carry into our internal planning and present to you going into and then again, my role is going to be a facilitator, so I'm going to guide the conversation, keep us focused, and I will try to keep us within 30 minutes, so it's a little bit of a time constraint there, but I also want to make sure every voice is heard, so I may be calling on people, so please share as much as you can, because we really want to hear from you. So the first question I have is, what motivates you to serve on the Mobile GR Commission, and what aspects of mobility or community life are you most passionate about? So really quick, short answers, I'm sure.
Sure. So briefly, I'll make this as brief as I can. I actually graduated from high school in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and that's a town that's essentially got Grand Rapids population and about a third of the footprint, and really, really cycling and pedestrian friendly town. And so in Halifax, you'll hear people have this argument. By the time you're done getting your bike out of your basement and figuring out where to lock it up, you may as well have walked. And I had friends, I didn't have drunk driving stories when I was in high school from my peer group. I had drunk biking stories. I also figured that buses were the things that you used to get home from the bars when they closed. And so I was shocked to come here when I went to college and find that the buses stopped at 6 o'clock at night. I thought, what kind of Mickey Mouse town shuts their buses off at 6 o'clock? But I also, when I moved here, actually people in the hotel, what's the Amway Grand there, the big tower that's got Cygnus used to be the restaurant at the top, and walked in there, and when a waiter, they had this whole theory about me he recognized me as the crazy guy who walked downtown because I was like essentially Grand Rapids' only pedestrian. And I still get that biking. People are like, oh, I could have given you a ride to this meeting. And I'm like, then what would have happened? So I'm enjoying being a cycling advocate by doing it, but I really want a town where cycling is safe. And so my real passion is to slow everything down in this town. I want cars moving at sub-lethal speeds anytime when they're actually interacting with human beings. And there are roads that we just all put up with. Like, human beings live on Lake Michigan Drive by Colville, and it may as well be a highway. Human beings live on Burton Street on chunks that may as well be a highway. That scares the daylights out of me. And I look around town and I just see opportunities for us to do better all over the place, and I want to do them all yesterday, in case you guys haven't all caught that theme from so I'm really, really urgent on this. I think that there's so many opportunities, so much low-hanging fruit, so many things that shouldn't really be controversial that I would like to get working on faster. And I know that's being as mayor now, that's my problem, right? Like, I need to get more funding, I need to get more support for this. But I'm really, really grateful to all of you. But I'm here because I want to generate consensus for a better vision for a livable city. And for me, the top end of livability is safety. And safety means traffic safety about as much as it means safety from crime for me. I mean, I think they're roughly equal.
Thank you, that was very helpful. So, yeah, and we're going to get into priorities and more specific ways to address those concerns in a bit, but that is exactly what we're looking for here, just general motivations, what's something that you're passionate about?
So I can maybe go next because I think a lot of what I'm going to say is going to echo a lot of what Mayor LeGrand just said. And so my motivation for being here is really a passion about mobility, public transit, more active forms of transportation, biking, walking, all of the above. Similarly, my passion for this is really motivated by my own lived experience. I lived in Copenhagen, Denmark for 5 years before I moved to Grand Rapids. And just living in this environment where cars are not like expected to be the mandatory form of transportation was really eye-opening. Even as someone, who hasn't really used a car regularly in my entire adulthood. So like even just the difference of, living in a college town, Ann Arbor versus, Denmark, it was really eye-opening. And the number one thing that motivates me is safety as well. Because something that I think Americans don't think about is that our traffic deaths are higher than any other developed country in the world. And it's not just because we drive more. When you parse out that data, it doesn't hold up. And in fact, for a long time, our traffic deaths were actually decreasing. Over the past 10, 15 years, they've been increasing again, essentially have doubled in the last 20 years. And no other developed country, OECD country, has seen traffic deaths rising. We are the only OECD country that sees that. And so this is hugely motivating for me because I feel that it is something that we can make actionable changes towards reducing that. And I think that there's a lot of ways that cities can do that. Obviously, there's steps that could be taken at a higher level of government as well. But that is what really drives me, is how can we improve safety? Because to be perfectly honest, it is unconscionable that our traffic deaths are at the rate that they are, and that they are increasing and not decreasing relative to all of our peer countries, even Canada, which we all would think would be a peer in many ways. So yeah, that's my motivation.
Thank you. Any other motivations or?
Yeah, I echo safety as a prime motivation. I wouldn't say it's my first, but we have plenty of other commissioners like that. Connectivity within the city is really what motivates me. I think for too long we've focused on a single way of getting around, and we need to have oftentimes very difficult conversations about how we do get around in an efficient and sustainable manner that leads to a city that everyone can use, and not just a certain subset of people. So what that looks like to me would be like a dash for each business district or something like that. Obviously, we'll discuss that later, but yeah, connectivity and kind of a diversity of transportation options within our city is what motivates me.
Thank you.
Ditto, like literally. I was starting to type notes and then you all started talking, but that connectivity, that accessibility, and thinking of all the audiences that need to get around, not just from a privilege standpoint for me, because I want to take the dash and not pay $20 to go to the Van Andel Arena, but people who literally need our help getting around the city so they can live, right? So they can shop, so they can get to their destination for employment or education. That is what motivates me to think more than just we need to have more meters and more parking lots. So, ditto.
Thank you both.
Quickly for me, obviously as a representative of the Rapid, obviously looking at the transit lane is huge, but also as a bicycle and transit commuter too. Providing transportation options and safe transportation options is kind of the passion I have for this too. So kind of echoing what a lot of people already said here as well, but looking for how we can enhance. And I think a big thing too for transit is just the connections too, because it's great to have transit, but how do you get there is a huge question as well. So yeah.
I might not counter, but compliment and say hedonism. If you look at and analyze the dregs of people's life. A big chunk of it is like, oh, my commute sucks. It's like nobody would say the commute is their best part of the day. And when you get to go and experience what a delight that like cycling to work or walking to work, not just from a, somebody who's the age 16 to 70 and has access to a license and $12,000 a year to pay for a car, but thinking about that as like a baseline, what it means to invite participation into society, thinking about how are we maximizing the contribution and making those everyday means of transit delightful instead of drudgery. I think that would be an aspirational end of like, I want to help make that happen. Really delightful commutes.
I'll add mine. It's, I'm looking at it from a workforce development point of view, like how are we having equity in terms of people actually getting to their jobs? That's a part of my job and a part of what brings me here. But then safety is interwoven all throughout that. I think both we can look at the research and we can look at anecdotally, I'm in the 3rd Ward in Grand Rapids. I live south of 28th Street, which some people might not even acknowledge or know that that's still a part of Grand Rapids. And I look at going across 28th Street on Kalamazoo and the fact that I have to pause after the light turns green in order to make sure no one's going to blow that red light. And so, when I think through that, I want to still think through even those intersections, because I also have a goal of I would love to be able to feel safe riding my bike across that intersection, because otherwise it feels like, although I'm in Grand Rapids, I'm pretty well disconnected from Grand Rapids because of that intersection. And of course, don't get me wrong, we've got the Plaster Creek Trail, which is going to get me, for the most part in a safe way, but I want to have multiple options that are also going to bring me on the streets. And then finally, when it comes to the bus, I think for me, dignity for people means that we're not seeing a sort of system where only particular people are using buses, right? But rather, dignity means I can live and ride in transit amongst people from a number of different backgrounds, and that feels like a great thing to do, right? And so vulnerably, it took me a while to start taking the bus. I had anxiety about when the heck do I pull this is years ago, but when the heck do I pull the string? Probably not what it's called. And, I had to get over that, so, and work through that. But anyway, I want that dignity. I want slower forms and safer forms of transit and ways for people to get where they need to go.
Thank you.
Sure, I'll add my comment. As others mentioned, I love bicycling. I can echo that sentiment. I feel happier and healthier when I bike places, and there's a lot of places around Grand Rapids that I don't feel safe bicycling, so I don't. I'm an engineer by profession, so I like to solve problems. I joined the Mobile GR Commission to learn more about what staff does, what they're tasked to do, what they can't do, and what are their hurdles and obstacles for pushing forward the vision that a lot of people want to see in our city. So, yeah, if I can help with that at all, that feel pretty rewarding.
Thank you. So, for the sake of time, I probably move on to the next question, but just last chance if you want to speak. All these questions will kind of have a similar vein, so you can still kind of speak to things that motivate you and that you're passionate about. So the next one, we're going to go a little bit in the future, and then the third question is going to bring us back to more recent. But this would be if you could see a major difference in the mobility landscape in Grand Rapids 10 years from today, what would it be? And try to be specific, because I've heard a lot of stuff of like what's important to you motivation-wise is like safety, but say like armadillos would be in or something like that. Try to like have some specific changes about Grand Rapids in 10 years.
Mentioned it before, but connectivity to not just downtown, but between business districts, let's say.
Fare-free circulator train services?
Whether that's like a dash form, or let's say a city-run bus service somehow, or we work more closely with the Rapid to get better service within the city. It would be ideal to me as a resident of Creston neighborhood, to be able to travel to the Baxter neighborhood on a bus, and it doesn't take me an hour and a half because it routes through. So moving away, I guess, from, or at least adding to our current network of hub and spoke and moving towards a more like, avenue type approach, grid approach is how I see that happening.
Okay, and just to clarify, so I understand that part of it, the dash also is fare free. Is that important, or?
I think that is pretty important, and is obviously a major barrier to some people. But in the constraint of our public transit culture, that might not be possible. But
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything else? 10 years from now, a major change that you could envision would be?
Yeah, I can go here. It's kind of on the same vein as that. Is a lot of our bike lanes, as I'm sure we all see, are not all connected to each other. There's a bit of patchwork where it might be a network here, network there, but not all to each other. You can't ride from, let's say, West Grand to East Town in a consistent way. And so something like that, which is not too lofty of a goal, I'd love to see us be able to connect just bike lanes that way.
Just to follow up with the transit one too, I think the grid network is kind of an ambition of ours too. I think you need a high level of frequency to actually successfully do that. But it makes trips much better. So that is, and so we can find the resources to actually build that kind of network in our system would be a huge goal. The other one that was mentioned too that I definitely is bike connectivity too. I know biking to the south, anywhere south of 28th Street, you have like a couple options that feel at all safe. So looking at more safe and accessible connections throughout the city, but particularly from north to south of 28th Street.
So in those gaps in connectivity, does a painted line bike lane connect that gap? Is that a protected bike lane? 10 years from now, this is somewhat of a hopes and dreams situation.
Yeah.
We're trying to make it happen.
It depends on the street. Like if you just took Kalamazoo and simply painted a bike lane, I don't think that would be safe. But if you read a design, either alternative route, but like a lot of the Lake Drive, it really feels like a very safe bike lane to me. But like I said, just simply putting a lane on a busy road may or may not.
Generally, just depending on the location.
The context and yep.
I might say, can a 10-year-old, would a mom let her 10-year-old kid ride on the bike lane? And I think with painted infrastructure down Fulton, probably not. And so I think an aspiration would be like, could a parent send their kid across town to do an errand? And if there was a safe, interconnected series of multimodal transit, pick your poison as far as like which, if it's an scooter or a bicycle, whatever, that there's safe alternative routes for folks to get where they need to be.
If I can amplify on that, I guess I would say two things. One, if I were looking for what I'd love to see in 10 years, I'd love to see tipping point number of bikes, by which I mean roughly look like Boston, Massachusetts, like where you're like, oh, on that bridge at this point, there are 20 bikes and there are 10 cars. Like you see that in Boston all the time, where cars are actually outstripping bikes in use in certain places. Not everywhere, maybe totally, but I'd like to see transportation in general be about 20% slower. Again, one of the reasons why Boston doesn't freak me out and I'm not that scared about having my blind daughter in Boston, partly because cars aren't going that fast ever. So if she screws up, she's probably not going to get killed. So I'd like to see a tipping point for bikes. I'd like to see a tipping point for number of pedestrians, because I see scooters on the sidewalk all the time, and I get mad about it. And then I think, well, nobody's walking anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter that much. So I'd like to see a tipping point of pedestrian access or pedestrian use. But I think that thematically, what I think if we're going to drive that change, I can't emphasize enough that I think that actual users have to be listened to. And the Sadiq Khan's idea for this is desire lines. Like, don't tell pedestrians what they should be doing. Figure out what the pedestrians who are being pedestrians now want and do. And I can tell you, as long as I live in this town, it's pissed me off when I see engineers and I'm like, whoever the hell designed this doesn't actually walk anywhere. And they think they're doing this to make things, they just made my life as a pedestrian harder. Or all these people having a group hug about bike lanes aren't actually biking anywhere. And so they're doing stupid stuff. So I think actually listening to people who are doing it and letting them really be part of the design process, I just can't emphasize enough how important I think that is.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm going to call on two people because they haven't spoken yet. Chris, do you mind sharing with us? Put you on the spot. Warned me about it earlier.
Which question should I speak to?
Either one that you think is most important. I would love to hear the 10-year answer. So in 10 years, a major change in the mobility landscape you think would be impactful?
I probably can give you a blend of both. I think the first part of it for me, the thing that motivates me right now, or has motivated me over the years, is I did some work with the Detroit Mobility Transportation. They reached out to me. I keynoted an event for their group at one point, and one of the challenges that they shared with me that they had was they have a commission made up of people who know nothing about the inner city and what the lifestyle of these people look like and how important transportation is for that single mom with two kids who doesn't have a car, can't bike, whatever the case may be, right? And so we had a huge discussion around that. Me being from the inner city, I was able to speak to a lot of those challenges and what that looked like, and it really inspired me. And obviously I've been part of this for a while as well, but that's a part of what drives me, is I think about that single mom with the two kids who doesn't have a voice in this room. She doesn't have a vote. She doesn't get to say anything, and she's relying on us to make decisions on her behalf that's going to benefit her situation to a point of improvement that she can maybe get transportation or change whatever that needs to look like for her. I would say the second layer of that is those with disabilities. Really being intentional about that piece of it as well. And so when I think about that 10-year goal, I think two parts. The diversity of downtown, not just race, not just age, but just in general, right? Across the board diversity, and the level of disability. How can we improve that over the next 10 years to where those with disabilities feel more confident coming downtown in a wheelchair, a walker, a cane, whatever, right? And I don't think that, and now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think we have enough conversation around those issues. But that would be something that I would want to see over the 10 years, is that there's more intentionality about how those things are being done and being addressed. One, I don't know how many of you know this, but one thing I learned, I think it might have been you that shared this with me, but I didn't understand the importance of white lines, for the crosswalk until I got here, right? Like, that was a big deal. I never thought about that, but I don't have a reason to, because I don't deal with that disability of being able to see and blindness and those different things. But after learning that, it's like, okay, but that person doesn't have a voice in this room. So it's important that, we have to be mindful of that and understand that situation and what that person might be dealing with and really be able to speak to that. So.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yep.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I'd like to see the city buy a couple of right-sized snow plows so that we can snow plow bike lanes. Should we build more protected bike lanes all around the city? I don't know if Mobile GR has a say in this, but I'd like us to be, as a transportation body, not so focused on the PACER system, so that if we want to construct bike lanes in a connected network, we don't just have to rely on random streets that are reconstructed. We can just go ahead and implement that. And I'd like a bicycle action plan that's more of an actionable policy plan than a loose guiding document. I'd like it to say when you reconstruct a street, it needs to have the bare minimum, the lowest level of protected bicycling infrastructure. It doesn't have to be $5 million a mile. It can be something very basic with pre-manufactured armadillos. Armadillos? Yeah, that would be my vision.
And if I can add to that too, I have two things, one of which hasn't been mentioned. But first of all, going off of what Commissioner Rice stated, I want to get away from this idea that pedestrians and cyclists and anyone who is not in a car needs an alternative route, because that just means that we have to travel further or out of the way, and cars just get to drive directly where they're going. I live on the northeast side of the city, and over in my neighborhood, the grid has been a little bit forgotten. It's there, but it is not connected. And so I have to use like major roads like Leonard, Fuller, Knapp, Ball, all of these major connecting roads that have a lot of traffic on them because I don't have another option that isn't going a mile out of my way to get to where I'm going. And so I think, we can think about what is a safer route to take for more vulnerable road users, but I don't think it can come at the expense of but then you have to go a mile out of your way. We have to look at it being like, well, this is the direct path, speaking to these desire lines, that's what people are going to do. They're going to take the direct path.
Which is why I break the law 3 times getting down here.
Right. And then I think related to this that hasn't been mentioned, for a goal for 10 years, and it's really a benchmark for me is Vision Zero. I don't want to have traffic deaths in the city anymore.
Thank you. So the next question is kind of hard, so if you don't mind, Rick, maybe this is the one you want to put you on the spot for the 10-year one?
Well, I have an aspirational goal.
Okay.
But to the mayor's point, in order to get less driving occurring, we're going to need to make it more difficult to drive. So I think getting rid of one-way streets, that's number one. I wish we had no one-way streets again, in 10 years, maybe sooner. I also think I would love to see in 10 years a gondola system from the airport to Meyer Gardens to downtown to Millennium Park. It's on my wish list.
You mean like zip lines? What do you mean? Like you literally mean a gondola?
A gondola system. Yeah. And I think, I was thinking of New York, when I'm there, if you have to go 10, 12 blocks or whatever. So you look at your Uber and it's 25 minutes, and then you press the walking button and it's 15 minutes. It's like, why am I going to sit in an Uber for 20 minutes when I can walk it in 15? That forces me to walk. So I think those are the kinds of things hopefully we can get to.
Absolutely, thank you. Jessica mentioned earlier that we are going to propose a workshop, so we're going to talk about that in a bit because there's obviously a lot more discussion here. But I do want to pose a difficult question for you that we often have to answer as staff, and I just want to kind of share in that commiseration with you all. But what would you deprioritize, or what are things that you think are things that aren't a priority that you think that we are prioritizing or working on? If anything, you don't have to answer, but is there anything that comes to mind where we see a lot of this being staff time to use on this and we don't think it's as important as maybe it should be?
The parking investment strategy. Just anything, relitigating parking and what we do for parking and how we're going to get people to put their cars in any kind of place.
I would sort of, I suspect that might be my answer too. I'm not sure I want to lean on it too hard, but one of the things that is worth maybe this group talking about is there is a quiet revolution there's a lot of heartburn of small parking lot owners over on the west side who are trying to do air park, who then get told they can't, and it's a change of use and all of that. And if this commission were to say, you know what, we want to maximize organic use of parking lots. We understand that it might undercut our rates at our own lots if we let people do this, but we're trying, an organic. I think moving towards an organic model of parking rather than a planned model of parking has its virtues. I always think of Donkey Taqueria, which has 0 parking and tons of customers, and people just figure it out.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or ideas on work? And it could not even be work that we're doing right now, or just possible future work over the next 10 years that may come up that you think, and it doesn't have to be as drastic as saying completely drop it. Maybe it's not as high on your list as the top priorities.
I don't know how this affects this mobile GR department budget, but last month we had a signals presentation, and you mentioned how stretched thin our staff is based on, I think it was ASHTO requirements for how many signals an electrician should be working on. would it be possible for the city to recognize that the revenue we're bringing in from other surrounding areas is a part of the income that the city has, so we should staff Mobile GR more appropriately, so that like our staff can actually do and study other things, because it doesn't seem like they have the time to do that.
Thank you. And sorry, it's really difficult for me not to answer questions because I really want to, but I'm not going to. That's what we're going to do at this, hopefully a workshop, so we're interested if anyone has any potential disagreements or any concerns about that. We are kind of at time here, but a lot more to discuss. So we want to take these, these motivators, these visions that everyone has, and as well as the deprioritization topics, and make them into a longer conversation that we can have, which will help us not only plan for fiscal year 27, but also this long-range mobility blueprint we've discussed, which is the long-range plan for the city. So is any resistance to that? I know that may be a little bit more time-consuming. It'll be a more facilitated conversation like this, which is more discussion-based, as opposed to us presenting information where we can hear from you. Does that sound like something folks are interested in having?
So question, maybe Jessica, you could check on it. I know if this group meets in a workshop, we have a quorum, which would require it to be a public setting, correct? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, it
Okay.
would be in place of a mobile
Okay,
commission meeting.
all right,
All our city retreats are open meetings.
okay.
Yeah, and it would be facilitated very similarly to the way the city commission does it.
I think it might be helpful.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, any final thoughts? Again, we're over time, so.
I would require the mayor be there, though.
Okay.
I have a question, if that's okay. Actually, two questions. So one is related to just, the meeting topics that you propose. It's really helpful to kind of have an idea of where we're going. I'm wondering where how did you take into account, the proposals you got from us that you asked for what we want to talk about?
Good question. So remember I sent you all homework that you asked for. Some of you got back to me on that homework, and I appreciate all of that input. So I'm taking a look at the questions. Some of them are not within the scope of this body, and so I'll try to figure out how to answer your questions, because you don't need to make a request to just answer basic questions about how money is being spent at the city, for example. But but the other ones I think that we can address in the greater conversation during this workshop, I think is what I'm thinking. And then, so that was it. Those are the two types. It was we need to have a workshop discussion about that, and then these are not within the scope of this body, so.
Great.
And I apologize, I haven't gotten back to anyone with that information that submitted requests. Maybe some one-offs here and there, so I will get back. And specifically, I don't think that I responded to your requests, so thank you so much.
Yeah, and then I have a question related to, what we've talked about today with regard to the meeting expectations and all this stuff. So I'm wondering if it will clarify for me how I approach this, is that what are your goals in having a discussion with us?
So I think there is, we mentioned, there's a long-range plan that we want to develop. So we really want to get as much, to Commissioner Mathis's point, as much perspective on that plan as we can possibly get. And there's no way we can do that completely, but as many voices we can get on thoughts in there. So the long-range planning, I think, is really important to get different voices on. But then we have a short-term plan for our fiscal year 27. So we're kind of mixing those two and being able to talk about visionary stuff. And I think what this is nice about this combination of those two things is we can say these are really ideas that we can tell are really important to you. We as staff do not think they're realistic within our fiscal year 27 budget. So we'd like to take that feedback and help incorporate it into our long-range plan, but then be able to identify what we think is achievable in our fiscal year 27 budget, so that we can actually accomplish some things and to make sure that we're aligned on those priorities.
Thanks, Max. That's a long version of what I was going to say, so I'm not going to add to that on that side. Thank you for that. The other piece is that the code sets forth what this body is advising on. And so my job as the secretary of this board is to keep y'all focused on the scope. So if I say that's not within the scope of this body, that's not to say that I can't have a conversation with you as a citizen about it. It's more like there's very limited time that you all have set aside each month to speak to things. And so we want to make sure that you all are focusing on the priorities that have been put forth in the code. The other part of that is, so the code is got some things in there and some language that say things like not limited to the following information. So then there's the reality of budget, and then also the budget is approved by the city commission. So when you are in a fiscal year, like right now, the budget that I have is what has been approved by the city commission. And so as the director, it is my obligation to deliver on that work plan. And so again, my job here as your secretary is to hear your feedback and then bring that forward. And so I bring that forward and I say, hey, this is what I'm hearing from the people. And there may need to be an adjustment here or there. So when you all take action, and when you have discussions and then you ultimately take action, that is a trigger, that is a signal to me that I need to have a greater discussion about where we're at.
Yeah, so, and so some of this is like, how does Mobile GR spend money? But this body, I think, also can appropriately, and I hope it starts moving into a little bit more, making recommendations, formulating vision, and that's entirely appropriately inside the scope. And that's something that, can get driven by the body. So, when we get to comments, I have a couple things that I would like this body to consider making recommendations on, because frankly, as mayor, it will help me if I can just say, well, Mobile GR is officially recommending we do X, so I'm going to bring a couple of those up. But I think we should get in the habit of thinking just like the document I dropped on all of you 10 minutes ago or an hour ago now. Like, we could say, yes, we think this is a good idea. Like, we're a board, we can do that.
This is why I think a workshop would be helpful, because it would get these ideas on the table, and as opposed to, the problem at the last meeting is we didn't have time for question and answers. We were, so I want to make sure that as chair, that we leave enough time for communication both ways, not just staff telling us, here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
I think a workshop will bring that out and get the priorities, and if they're not within the scope of Mobile GR, then, Jessica will have to tell us. And then hopefully, we have time. Okay.
So everything then that you bring forward for discussion is within our scope. And then my question then also related to that is, it seems to me that there's a fine line between providing feedback on things that you are presenting to us and directing staff. So I'm wondering where that line falls to you. Because obviously I don't want to be doing something that's outside the scope of this body, but I think we need to decide where that line is. Because if we're having a discussion about something, it seems like, and from what we're hearing today, you want our feedback. So I'm just wondering where you see that line being.
Sure. So I don't think it's more of a line. It's more of a, when feedback is given, it's what we do with the feedback, right? And so it depends on where the feedback is and what is the will of the body, and is it a formal recommendation, is it a resolution? There's a couple of different things. So in true engineer fashion, I'm going to tell you it depends on the situation. I really appreciate all your comments and your questions. We've got to move forward with our next agenda items. We're out of time, a little bit over time.
Okay, so let's move on.
But I do think these are great
But
conversations.
save these questions for the workshop, because I think then we'll have 90 minutes of just those kinds of discussions. All right, next is the Parking Incentive Working Group update, correct?
So they can hear you online.
So they can hear me on the internet. Hi, everybody. I'm Ariel. I know most of you. I'm going to try to go through this, and I'm also going to stress test your ability to wait until the end to ask questions. So, Jess, I don't know if you want to say anything, but I'll just introduce myself. I took your microphone. Long story short is that I work at Flywheel with Adam, just for full transparency. And Flywheel has a contract with Housing Next and with the executive office. So we, basically were asked by Jess to do some help with facilitating a discussion around the parking incentive policy from the mid-'90s of the city. So I just want to give you kind of a really quick snapshot of what we went over last week with the working group. Some of you are on that, so you already know. Oh, thanks. I think that this is the long deck, so if I feel like I'm flying, sorry. I clicked. I don't want to get impatient and click again, but I'm gonna. Okay. Ryan, he's on vacation this week, so you all are stuck with me. He's the co-facilitator. Oh, wait. Am I clicking the wrong one? Okay. The big goal, we want the working group to review the existing policy and then align it with modern day. And then they're going to come to this body, make a recommendation. So the first session was really about orientation. We have 4 sessions total. This was just an overview for the group, showing them our agenda. I can send you this deck if you want it. We also set expectations and ground rules about how we behave in a group when we have differing perspectives. Little intros. And because we are doing this through Housing Next, obviously we wanted to go through and, give kind of an overview of who they are as an organization. I'm not going to go through this, the history of the parking incentive program, just so that we make sure we're all on the same page about what actually the parking incentive program is supposed to do. We went through and actually talked a little bit about the needs for housing in Grand Rapids and what the heck does that have to do with mobility and who cares? So we went through some data. I'm not going to spend any time on this. I can send you the deck if you're super curious. Hopefully most of you know all of these numbers by heart though. And went through some of the for sale, right? So we talked about basically when we look at places downtown, we actually have quite a bit of available space that are underutilized or vacant parcels. And right now, most of those equate to a surface lot. For example, if you want to call it the amphitheater district, we went through and kind of said, all right, where are people going to be coming from? These are employees, these are visitors, and what space do we have available because our land is finite. Gave another example. This is outside of the scope of this work, but we just kind of wanted to show you what we have done also in Uptown, so at the Lake and Wealthy intersection. And then just reminded the body that most of our households are the majority of them are actually 2 adults or 1 adult with no kids. It's really shifted probably since, I was a child where you had, 3 or 4 people at home. Kind of moved into trends, right? A lot of what we've talked about today, millennials and baby boomers are expressing a strong preference for these walkable neighborhoods, this connectivity, as we have the baby boomers aging. Jessica tells this story, and I always think it's a good snapshot. A lot of boomers are walking into the doctor's office, and they're saying, your prescription is to walk. We got into actually some of the hard costs of what it means to put in new infrastructure in the ground, and then, what does it actually cost to do parking itself, let alone to incentivize it, right? So we just need to be realistic about the constraints of what we're working with, right? Talked about housing and transportation and the percentage of your income as it relates to your ability to make choice. And then just some breakdown about what the cost to build is for housing, and really looking at this from an economic lens of eliminating a car from a household, going down to a car light home is $800 a month. You could use it on housing, you could use it to buy a million chicken nuggets, whatever it is that you want to do with your money. We just need to be realistic though, that right now our transportation systems aren't holding up. So I can go to Trader Joe's by 15 minutes from downtown, or I can take over an hour to get there by the bus. So, and Byron Center isn't even an option anymore. So just the truth is that right now we're in a situation where we've got a lot of folks coming into the city via car. And then we went through exercises about why is having a parking incentive program important in the first place. So a bit of visioning. in trying to understand, and then we put together the themes. Yep, and I'm going to have Jess pass out the recap of the a one-pager recap of the group, so you can kind of understand, you know, we need to really understand from a high level this vision of having a multimodal system that works for everybody. How does a parking incentive play into that? And then what we'll be doing in our next session is really breaking down data. So, you know, what are our current decks occupied as? What are the surface lots looking like? What kind of revenue are we bringing in? How much money do we have to play with in the budget to incentivize folks who need to come downtown via car because there's not another option? What kind of secondary effects does that have on peds and bikes? So we have 4 sessions total. Like I said, I'm open to feedback if there's anything specifically. Our scope is pretty narrow. So we are trying to orient ourselves in values, of course, but at the end of the day, we're trying to come back to you to make a recommendation so that you can ultimately amend or keep city policy as it is.
Remind me who's on the work group?
Raise your hand if you're on the work group.
Okay.
And then we've got Ingrid Miller from Uptown Grand Rapids Inc., Marianne Bonneau from DGRI, and then Dave Reinhardt, owner of Gingens, and then, oh, his name escapes me. Josh Lunger, no, his name
Richard App.
Rich is on there, and then Brandon Earhart.
Okay.
So it's a pretty diverse mix of perspectives, I would say. Yeah. Sure.
All right, good. Thank you. Next is the investment strategy project update.
Yep, so I've moved to putting memos in your packet for you all to review. Please let me know if you have any questions. I also have a memo just from me, which gives you some kind of broad departmental updates, and then I'm going to give up the rest of my time because I want you all to have plenty of time for your commissioners' comments at the end, and we're down to 19 minutes.
That's it?
Yeah,
You're finished?
I'm finished.
All right. So are we moving into public comment? Anyone in the public like to speak? All right, seeing none. Commissioner comments.
If I could go first. First of all, I would like this group to think long-term about, I was struck by this as I biked here. I should not be allowed to bike on the sidewalk on the bike I'm knocking around town on. I don't know, and I just asked our city attorney to look into, but we should look into whether our bike on the sidewalk policy is the same as it's ever been, or if we've got some kind of modification for e-bikes. There's class 1, probably everybody in here knows, class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes. We should, I think, as soon as possible, I think there's going to be a huge adoption of class 3 in the next 5 years because they kick ass and they're really useful. That's what I'm using all the time, and they're not that expensive. What that means is we're going to have the potential for lots of people riding class 3s on the street, on the sidewalks, unless we really come down, unless we build a culture where like, that's not okay. You get a ticket from a cop. There are real consequences to being caught on a class 3 on the sidewalk.
Is that a motorized? Is that?
Well, class 3 is fast. So
Okay.
a class 1 e-bike is like the pedal assist, like 750 watt. That's what Melissa uses, my wife.
Okay.
And like, that's what 75% of e-bikes out there right now are. What I've got is a motorcycle that's pretending to be a bike. So it'll go 45 miles an hour. That should not be on a sidewalk under any circumstances. So I was just struck by that as I came in. Like, and if you're in, and those of you who've been in New York, right? New York is filled with psychotic Grubhub people bombing down sidewalks on big fast e-bikes, right? So that's and if you go to Amsterdam, like there's lots of nice people on 8 mile an hour pedal bikes, and then the occasional psycho goes by you on a class 3, and everyone's mad about it. But like, it's coming. So we should have, if we have a policy in place where we can hold the line on that, that's a lot different than trying to put the genie back in the bottle. So I'd like this group to think about that as a policy thing, maybe make a recommendation to city commission so we can drive a policy. That's not a today thing. I just want to put it on everybody's agenda. It can make my life a lot easier if Mobile GR makes a recommendation up to city commission on that. Second big thing is,
Sorry, can I just clarify, like,
Yep.
with the difference? So the class 2 and class 3 have a throttle. so you could use the motor without pedaling.
Right.
Class 1 is only
Right.
kicks in when you're pedaling.
But they also go a lot faster. So second thing is, you probably all, unless you were living under a rock, know that we passed a CAP this recently, Climate Action Plan. One of the recommendations in there basically has led us to a bunch of engineers working on a green revolving fund proposal for the city. And traditional green revolving funds focus on like energy efficient free for housing, but I pointed out to that group at their kickoff meeting that energy efficiency could also mean getting people like me to not take their 6,000-pound electric thing downtown, but to take a 100-pound electric thing downtown because it uses less electricity for me to take a bike downtown. Therefore, that's energy efficiency. The reason I'm bringing this up is if this group were able and willing to simply write a letter to that group saying, we would like you to consider allowing citizens to use your green revolving funds to say, buy an e-bike. That might actually make that group broad. They're considering the scope of what's going to be in that basket as we speak. And if we had low-income individuals able to buy e-bikes on some kind of contract with that group, and we get a couple hundred e-bike users in Boston Square, we just eliminated a $10,000 a year expense for them if we can get them from a two-car family to a one-car family. So I didn't mention before, like for me, number one thing on this is safety. Number two thing is it's an anti-poverty thing. Like as Ariel said, like if you can get a world with a one-car family, you got 10 grand extra a year in your pocket. Not a big deal if you're an orthopedic surgeon. It's a big deal if you're working at Popeye's Chicken. So like that's good. So the potential to get e-bikes, and I ride an e-bike. I'm really good. I can go 25 miles an hour if you put me in spandex and put me on a tri-bike. But like, I'm a really fast cyclist. There's no way I'm using it for commuting until I can use an e-bike. The world changes when I don't have to sweat. I can show up and not look weird. So like, to go to a job, I'm convinced 90% of people want or are going to need an e-bike, not a traditional bike. That's where I'm on it. So getting them into the hands of adopters in the urban core particularly, huge opportunity.
This is why you must be at the workshop.
Yeah, but I'm saying, if we could just send a letter to that planning group from this group, if this group is like, hey, can you please include some vision for that, that would be all it would take for this group to have permission to model that out, which would feed into our goal, which is mobility. Sorry that was complicated, but that's more time sensitive. So like maybe if we could do that next month. They're going to be building all this out next semester. It's a work group at Calvin College. Thanks.
Yes.
One more thing. I don't know. I think term limits suck in all times and places. I don't want term limits on any of the boards I'm appointing people to. This board has term limits that's dumb. I don't know if the board itself can eliminate its own term limits or if city commission has to. Jessica, we can figure that out, and I can ask the city attorney. But I would love to hear from this board whether you all enjoy being turfed off at some random point. Because frankly, you're here for expertise and passion. I don't think that necessarily has an expiration date. And if we got talent on a board, I don't want to get rid of it because of some dumb arbitrary rule. Personally, I think term limits suck. So I'd love to hear whether you guys like being term limited. Maybe it makes you feel less guilty about quitting. I mean, it does give you an out, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure. We'd have to ask the city attorney. I have no idea.
I don't either, but I'm just pointing
Off
out,
the top of
like,
my
if
head.
this board were to say, hey, we hate the fact that we're term limited, again, that would help me address the issue.
I think term limits are okay if they don't always have to be a requirement that you must. It, gives the person the option to renew a term, not, like right now, we don't have a choice.
Right, well, then you have
That's the
you have
question.
terms, not
You have-
term limits,
okay, yeah.
right?
So
Terms
maybe
are
that's
good.
what I'm saying.
Yeah. Terms are fine, like, I don't want everybody to be on, we're not all president for life, right? Like,
Right.
but I think term limits are dumb.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have one thing. I'll be really quick since it's a little bit off topic, but not this Saturday, but Saturday the 13th at 8:15 a.m. We're doing the Mayor's Annual Grand River Cleanup. Hopefully you all can come. It's at 6th Street Park. I feel like this group is applicable group for this, but my organization, WEMIAC, we are doing that, bringing back this event that probably a lot of you have been to in years past, and we've revived it this year, and obviously David's going to be there, and hopefully the rest of you can all come.
Where do we park? Just kidding, just kidding.
Take a kayak.
Anything else? All right. We're adjourned, 11 minutes early. Thanks for all your comments.
Thank you for your humor.